What if the US dollar died tomorrow? Your grocery money is worthless, your bank account completely gone, and an entire global economy collapsing in a single night. In this video, we're putting the dollar through the ultimate stress test. First, we'll show you a grocery store meltdown where $100 can't even buy you a loaf of bread. Then a cashless world where every single thing you buy is tracked. And after that, we'll see what happens if China became the #1 economy overnight. Then we'll push it further. What happens if the United States defaults on its debt? And finally, the unthinkable, a global debt default where every country on Earth collapses at once. Stay with me because this isn't just money talk, this is survival. And by the end of this video, you'll see exactly how fast everything you rely on can vanish. And trust me, you're not ready for what's coming. Let's get to it. So let's start here, where it hits first, your local grocery store. So what if tomorrow morning your money was worthless? Would you be able to buy food, pay rent, or even fill your car with gas? Because in this scenario, the US dollar, the most powerful currency in the world, collapses overnight. And the very place you'd feel it first is the grocery store. Now, imagine walking into your local grocery store with $100 in your pocket, but that bill, it buys you nothing. Bread costs $50,000, milk $100, and eggs, forget about it. They're basically a luxury item. Now, people rush to the aisles, shelves empty in hours, not days. And eventually, stores refuse to even accept your cash because who wants money that no longer has value? Now, here's why. The US dollar is a fiat currency, which means its value is based on trust. And if that trust disappears, the paper in your pocket is just paper. No government, no store, no neighbor will trade it for goods. Now, without the dollar, basic survival becomes a battle. Bartering takes over. You're trading sneakers for soup, jewelry for rice, and a TV for a single gallon of gas. And the scary part, this isn't science fiction. It's happened before. Zimbabwe, 2008. Inflation hit 79.6 billion% per month. A single loaf of bread cost $300 billion, and at this point, the Zimbabwean dollar was no longer money. It was confetti. It was the fastest, most catastrophic currency collapses in the modern world. And then there's Germany. After World War I, the nation was drowning in war debt and reparations. The government solution? Just print more money. But the presses never stopped, and soon the mark wasn't money anymore. It was just paper. And by 1923, inflation was so bad that families carried wheelbarrows of cash just to buy bread. Workers were paid twice a day, rushing to spend their wages before prices doubled by the evening. And in the cold German winters, something unthinkable happened. People burned stacks of banknotes for heat because firewood was worth more than the money itself, and the United States isn't immune. So if the dollar died tomorrow, it wouldn't just be grocery stores. Gas stations would shut down, landlords would stop accepting rent, banks would close, and your life savings would be wiped out in a single night. And that's just the first domino, because once cash itself disappears, what replaces it? A new digital system? A cashless society where everything you buy is tracked? What if the world abandoned cash completely? Would it be total convenience or total control? Now, what if tomorrow cash was gone? No bills, no coins, no wallets. Every dollar you spend was digital. Now, at first, that sounds amazing. No more digging for change, no more losing your wallet. Everything you buy is instant and seamless. Stores move faster, banks don't need tellers, and even crime drops, because how do you rob someone who doesn't carry cash? That sounds like a perfect utopia, right? Wrong, because here's the hidden danger. When every single dollar is digital, every single transaction is tracked by banks, by companies, and by the government. You buy a burger? Tracked. You tip your bartender? Tracked. You give money to a friend? Tracked. Nothing is private. You make a mistake, and your entire account could be frozen in one click. So here's the terrifying question. If your cash is gone and your account gets locked, how do you survive? How do you pay rent? How do you buy food? How do you keep the lights on? Because this isn't just theory. In China, the government already runs one of the largest cashless systems on Earth. Almost every transaction, from buying noodles on the street to paying rent in the city, flows through apps like Alipay or WeChat Pay. Physical cash is practically gone. Now, at first glance, it looks efficient, futuristic, militaristic and unstoppable. But here's the other side. With this system, the state can see everything, every purchase, every payment, and every move. And they don't just watch, they keep score. China has tied digital payments to a social credit program. And if you support the wrong cause or criticize the government, your score drops. And suddenly, that sleek cashless world turns into a cage. And if this happens in the US, imagine a future where the wrong tweet, the wrong purchase, and the wrong political opinion means your money disappears overnight. But that's just the beginning. Because what if it wasn't just your country controlling your money? What if another country took over completely? Now, what if tomorrow morning China passed the US and became the #1 economy in the world? What happens to your job, your savings, and even your future? Now, the US dollar is the backbone of world trade, but if the Chinese yuan replaced it overnight, the ripple effect would be brutal. Your retirement account, instantly worthless. Companies that rely on US dominance, completely gone. Millions of jobs outsourced or shipped overseas, or even erased completely. Now, picture this. You walk into work, your company's bankrupt. Why? Because every contract, every trade deal, and every loan is now written in the Chinese yuan, and the US dollar is dead weight. Now, the US influence on the world stage would collapse overnight. Countries would stop buying our debt, military powers weaken, and the balance of power flips. And now, in this new world, China makes the rules. And it wouldn't just be about money, it would be about power. For nearly half a century, the US dollar has been the world's reserve currency. Now that gave America leverage. We could sanction rivals, cut off dictators, and influence global trade with the stroke of a pen. But if the yuan took over, that leverage is gone. Now imagine a world where China can decide who trades and who starves, where sanctions don't bite because the US has no control. And suddenly, America's ability to pressure nations like Russia, Iran, and North Korea completely vanishes overnight. And here's why that's terrifying. The new rules would be written in Beijing. Trade, technology, and energy are all tilted to benefit China. American companies are left playing catch-up in someone else's game. And allies who once looked to Washington would now bow to Beijing, chasing the yuan just to survive. And for Americans at home, it wouldn't just be an economic loss. It would be a complete political earthquake. The world's beacon of democracy would lose its seat at the head of the table. Decisions about freedom, rights, and global order would now be dictated not from Washington, but from Beijing. And overnight, the balance of the free world flips, and America is no longer a leader, but a follower. And if losing global power to China sounds terrifying, imagine what happens if America collapsed from the inside. Because the real threat isn't from another country taking over, it's the US dollar snapping in half under its own weight. What if tomorrow morning the United States defaulted on its debt? No payments, no warning, just total collapse. What happens to your money, your job, and your future? So the US government owes around $35 trillion, and every single day it borrows more and more just to keep the lights on. But what if tomorrow America said, we can't pay? An entire system would shatter. Your social security checks completely gone. Your retirement fund, it's worthless. Your job is at risk because overnight the US dollar would lose its credibility. And when the backbone of global finance snaps, everything you rely on crumbles. Now picture this, the stock market opens and instantly crashes. Banks lock their doors, ATMs run dry, and the world's safest investment, US Treasury bonds, turn into toxic waste. And in the chaos, millions of Americans wake up broke. But it doesn't stop there. Countries around the world would dump the dollar. Allies would stop trusting America, rivals like China and Russia would celebrate the US influence vanishing, and the world economy, was built on America's promise to pay, suddenly has no foundation. And here's the terrifying part. Once that trust is gone, you can't just flip a switch and get it back. Interest rates would skyrocket, borrowing would shut down, inflation would explode, and what follows next isn't just a recession. It's the greatest financial disaster in modern history. So here's the question. If the US defaulted tomorrow, would you be ready? Could you survive if the dollar itself collapsed? Because if you think America defaulting is scary, wait till you see what happens if the entire world defaulted at the same time. Because that's not just a crash, it's not just a recession, that's the end of the global financial system as we know it. It's not a crisis anymore, it's an apocalypse. Now imagine this, every single country on Earth says we can't pay. Trillions of dollars evaporate overnight. What happens next? Civilization doesn't bend, it breaks. First, governments stop paying their bills, welfare checks vanish, military budgets collapse, and banks freeze. The credit cards stop working, ATMs go dark, and within 24 hours, stock markets around the world would collapse. Planes are grounded, ships sit idle at ports, and the global economy grinds to a terrifying halt. Your paycheck? Gone. Your bank account locked, and your 401k doesn't exist. Because even the safest investments in the world, US treasuries, German bonds, the Japanese yen, turn into worthless paper. Because if every country defaults, there's no safe haven left. And we've seen glimpses of this nightmare before. In Greece, Argentina, and Venezuela, the governments defaulted. Ordinary people lose everything: their jobs, their home, their retirement, and their dignity. Now multiply that pain by 200 nations at the exact same time. Riots would erupt in major cities, ATMs would be smashed, stores would be looted, and banks would be boarded shut. Entire governments would collapse in weeks. And without money, without trade, without trust, the global system would reset completely. This isn't just financial chaos, it's a reset of civilization itself. And the worst part is, it wouldn't take decades, it wouldn't even take years. This could all unravel in a matter of days. So the question isn't if the world could survive, the real question is, would we? So now you've seen it. A grocery store meltdown, a cashless cage, China taking over, the US snapping under its own debt, and finally, a world where every country collapsed at once. This isn't just a warning, it's a reminder of how fragile everything really is. The money in your wallet, the numbers in your bank account, and an entire system we rely on every single day can all vanish in the blink of an eye. Would you be ready? Could you survive if the system we rely on falls apart completely? Drop your answers in the comments, because if it happens, your survival plan might be worth more than gold. And if you thought that was insane, wait till you see what happens if the Federal Reserve printed $1 quadrillion. Now make sure you subscribe, hit that bell notification so you don't miss out. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.